Hey guys, if you enjoy content like this, I stream every Monday through Thursday at twitch.tv/bikespokes from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So come check me out. All right, enjoy the video. Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to be going over kind of my magnum opus build for the league, kind of my overall capstone for the league, if you will. This build puts out a whopping 392 million DPS when it has all of its flasks up and all of its buffs up. On average, it's dealing well over 200 million. We'll say it caps out at around 392 million. This build also has 90% all elemental resistances and has about an 80% physical damage reduction, about 5.3k energy shield, and it has almost max block. It has 64% block with 75% spell block, so this build is extremely tanky as well as has insanely high DPS. So the build is cast on crit Creeping Frost, and the build works very similarly to how cast on crit Ice Spear scales, which is scaling the base damage and then shotgun capability by multiplying the number of projectiles that the skill fires at once. So starting off with our tree is pretty straightforward. Is a general cast on crit Ice Spear tree, similar in that aspect, except now we have access to tattoos, right? So we have down in our bottom right hand corner, we have the doozy that me and my friend Whimsy came up with cast on crit Ice Spear, which is we get access to +3 max cold as well as an additional projectile and a max power charge down in that bottom right hand corner of the tree. And then we also have access to another 3 max cold res with Unnatural Instinct in the jewel socket just above that section that I was just previously speaking on. And that's allowing us to basically res cap alongside some aura effect and purity of ice with Aegis and Melding of the Flesh. And then we're doing your general blanketed snow, prismatic heart, widespread destruction. We're running 3 of those large cluster jewels with lightning res to help us get our lightning res up, because this build has an easy time getting fire and cold res, but the lightning res was a bit of a struggle, so we had to basically put most of it into our jewels. We then have some reservation efficiency jewels, 2 small clusters with 3 passive, 6% reservation efficiency, 35% increased effect, and then we're packing in our chaos resistance here because we are actually a low life build, not a chaos inoculation build, so that we can run pain attunement and righteous fire. And then we're running 1 critical medium with basics of pain and pressure points so that we can get our crit chance capped. And then we have eye to eye repeater and eye to eye shrieking bolt mediums to add extra projectile damage. And then we're running a militant faith, of course, as you do with any cast on crit power charge stacking build. You get a militant faith with inner conviction from the dominus passive part of it. And then we have a threat of hope getting us glancing blows. And then we have a watcher's eye. This watcher's eye is, let me tell you, it's a collector's item basically. Whimsy paid about 1.5 mirrors for this watcher's eye, and it's crit chance, ES on hit, and cold pen with hatred. So it is like a lot of cast on crit Ice Spear fans froth at the mouth for something like this, we'll say. So yeah, very, very premium stuff on this build. As for our skills, if we move on to our skills, we have our Frostbite, Vortex, Hex Touch setup in our boots with Bone Chill. And then we have Sniper's Mark, Mark on Hit, and Molten Shell in our weapon. And then in the other weapon, we have Righteous Fire, Frostblink, and Purity of Ice. Since we don't have much room for skill gems, we're actually struggling to fit all of our skill gems in our gear. So we do have 1 Purity of Ice not attached to Enlighten in our shield. It is getting +2 levels, so we're able to hit that threshold because we get +1 to all cold and we get +1 to all from the ashes. So we get that level 23 breakpoint on Purity of Ice that we're looking for. In our gloves, we're running our Arrogance setup. We have Vitality, Herald of Ice, and Tempest Shield. So basically our auras that have the least reservation are in our Arrogance setup. For our 6-link body armor, we have Creeping Frost, Divergent, with Power Charge on Critical Divergent, Awaken Cast on Critical, level 6, which is important for trigger rate specifically. And then we have Divergent Cyclone for extra move speed, Awaken Greater Multiple Projectiles for that shotgunning effect I was talking about, and Inspiration to reduce the mana cost to 0, so that we can still get our inspiration charges, because Cyclone can never cost less than 1, and this will allow us to always keep up casting Creeping Frost without having any mana issues. In our helmet, this is our reservation and aura stacking helmet, so we're putting Zealotry, Determination, and Hatred in here because they are our highest reserved mana auras. They're the 50% auras. They're also some of the most important auras. And then we have an Awaken and Lighten 5 inside this helmet as well, just to deal with the reservation efficiency. Our shield, the Aegis, has a corruption on it for discipline, so that we can fit discipline into the build. And then we have Aspect of the Spider on our boots as well, so that's our last aura basically. For items, we're running Whimsy's and I's kind of joint made Imperial Skein. I helped him craft it. He funded the whole thing, so it's kind of his dagger. Insane Dagger, it's on TFT. It is great for any cast on crit cold spell build that you can think of. 23% crit multi, spells have double damage, increased spell damage, and then the best explicits you could ask for: crit chance, crit multi, level of all cold, increased attack speed, hits can't be evaded. For the Aegis, like I said, we want 23 discipline skill corruption, and then we want Fizz taken as mod on here as well, so that we can reduce our Fizz damage that we're taking. For the helmet, it's another mirror tier item. This is not on TFT. I found this on trade. It's Ice Spear fires an additional projectile, unfortunately. Makes it good for Ice Spear as well. Like I said, the Ice Spear and Creeping Frost are kind of plug and play here. You can kind of remove one and put in the other. It's more of a matter of preference. And then it has +1 socketed intelligence gems, +2 AoE, +2 aura gems, like just stacking auras, stacking reservation, giving us a power charge. Fantastic helmet. For the chest piece, we're running Chevron's wrappings with +2 AoE, +2 projectile gems, so that we get the most amount of levels on our Creeping Frost. If you were running Ice Spear, it would be +1 all, +2 projectile would be your best. For the gloves, we're running a hits against chilled enemies fractured mod with tier 1 ES, +2 AoE, some chaos res to help us with our chaos resistance issues, and then crit chance and elemental damage for our crafted on suffix. And then we have unnerve and cold exposure as our implicits. For our boots, very general Tailwind CDR boots with as much energy shield as you can fit, and then Aspect of the Spider. For our ashes, mine is double corrupted, but obviously 30% quality, 18% reservation would have worked just fine, but I'm running a double corrupted one with +1 all res, which is allowing us to swap off 10% aura effect and add 8% increased damage per aura you have on your character. So extra damage there. Zealotry, 20% aura effect obviously is insane as well. For the ring, we're running the Plague Grip ring. This is in TFT. This ring is perfect. It's the best ring that I've seen in a long time show up in a league. And so I definitely got my hands on it. This is the best ring you could be running for cast on crit builds for the most part. And then I have a Calandra's Touch to mirror the ring as well. For our Mage Blood, I have a double corrupted, increased movement speed during any flask effect. Zealotry has increased aura effect. I paid 1.6 mirrors for this. And then it has hits against enemies unnerved. You have increased crit strike chance. Without the unnerve enchant, our crit chance is, I think, 97.6% or somewhere around there. With it on, it's 100%, no problem. We're then running a Diamond Flask with additional LE res, Quicksilver Flask with increased armor, Silver Flask with reduced mana cost, and a Ruby Flask with increased movement speed. So we get as much movement speed as possible, because that's the only thing holding the clear speed back, is how fast you can run. And then we have Dying Sun, which, yes, we're stacking Ruby Flasks, but it's important because we have Righteous Fire on, and also because we actually have really bad fire resistance issues, so the Magic Ruby Flask caps our fire res always. And then we have Dying Sun, which is giving us 2 additional projectiles, which is basically adding a good 60 million DPS to the build. A good even 70 million, you would say. Now, for calculation on the damage itself for this build, each projectile is dealing 36 million damage. And then always we're casting 9 projectiles. So we're dealing, let's see, 36 times 9. We're dealing 324 million DPS basically always. And then with the 2 extra projectiles from Dying Sun, we're up to 392 mil. And then that doesn't even equate for Sniper's Mark and how many projectiles that adds. I have no idea. That's really unwieldy thing to mess with because those go towards additional targets, so it gets a little confusing. So I just cut that out completely. Instead, we just are adding the Sniper's Mark actually dealing increased projectile damage instead. And yeah, that's about how the build goes, guys. The calculations on this build are insane. I spent a lot of time working on this build. It's gone through 2 iterations from full erase to full renew, which means I built it, I destroyed the entire thing, and then built it completely again a second time and made it better the second time. I am really struggling to find upgrades for this build. I think the only thing really left to do on this build is doing things like Hinacor's Locks double corrupts, and then also if I swapped my tier 1 increased energy shield and tier 1 and the benched flat energy shield on my boots, if it was instead tier 1 flat with it benched increased, it's slightly more energy shield. There's also, we could get like 2% reservation on the melting of the flesh, and if we did that, then we could add some extra tattoos for global defenses. Very small tweaks and upgrades we could still make to the build, but for the most part, this is about as min-maxed as it gets, and I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching how it performs on screen. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.